boss, pleasure, honor, pleasure, privilege. I just want to say thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule.
No
Um,
problem.
Mate, let's get cracking. You know, like you chucking
Yeah.
over yourself over a pole is mental. I think the sport of pole vault is insane. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you just mentioned your mum got yourself into it, right? But
Yeah.
talk to me about this journey.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, as any athlete, I guess you resonate to a sport that keeps asking you to come back. And pole vault was one of those things. I love track and field. I love when after my gymnastics days and I retired from gym, I decided I wanted to continue sports and continue in that because I excelled being outside the classroom. And I just felt like pole vault gave me so much to learn. And there was so much in-depth detail where I felt like a lot of the running events, and not that any of the other track events are not technically sound. They are. Every event has their own thing and their own vice, right? But
Mm,
pole vault, it was almost like every single time down the runway, I could never be perfect. And I strive for perfection in anything I do in life, whether it's my modeling, my acting, or, track and field and pole vaulting. And so it kept bringing me back because there's this like hunger, and you probably feel the same thing. It's like, oh, I can feel like I can go another level, or I feel like I can go superior than what I did before. And that's what pole vault brought to me in my life. And I was never satisfied. And that sense of never being satisfied is so dangerous, but such a blessing to be able to have. And you can't really teach that. So pole vault did that for me. And all my parents could do was just support me all the way through. And we just went from, high school, getting a full ride scholarship to University of Miami. And I was like, hey, well, what can we do now? Well, you can go to the Olympics because you're good enough. And then now you can turn pro because you're actually jumping heights that the top 10 women in the world are jumping. And so as soon as those steps and those doors slowly opened, I realized, well, now I'm just going to make a career out of it. And this is where I am.
it's absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, it's
You know,
crazy.
it's definitely one of those sports you look at and you go, well, this is a massive feat of athleticism, right? That's undeniable. But at the same
Yes.
time, like as you see these men and women run down the track, right? You're
Mhm.
like, what is going through their head? Because that's got to be as much of a mental battle than a physical battle, right?
Yeah. Well, and I do find that's the thing with vault. Like I took up heptathlon last year, so I learned a lot of different events, but I feel like vault, that was what was so mind blowing to me. Was it didn't matter how physically in shape I was. It didn't matter I was running the fastest times or lifting the heaviest weight I've been lifting in my career. I was like, I had to have full commitment from the first step to taking off and completely committing, and had this tunnel vision for 5 seconds. And if anything rocked that tunnel vision, it interrupted your jump, right? And you either stop, you either run through, or you pop up. And it's such a frustrating event because it's like, you're ready, you're capable. And then all of a sudden, just something little will shake you. And so I would say I really started struggling with things on the runway in 2020 after the pandemic, 2021. And then when I got my concussion, it was like a full different, like, okay, now your brain's actually injured and we need your brain to be functioning so you can pole vault. So long story short is I really had to I guess you could say, go back to the drawing board when it came to my mental aspect of sports and what was going to work for me and what was going to retrain my neural pathways, to commitment and to actually want to be there, changing my language, the way I'm talking, changing my environment, taking people out of my, I call it Team Newman. Like, I have this huge village of people that help me get through what I get through
Mm.
every day. And I had to take some people out because they were toxic and they were using the wrong words or they were saying the wrong things. And it's not that they're bad people. It was just wasn't helping my concussion and helping me get back on track to be at what the level I know I can be. I deserve, and I know I want to be on that podium. Everyone deserves to be on that podium for all the time and effort they put in. And it comes down to who has the most mentally toughest mind that day, because the top 10 women in the world all are one, two, and three, to be honest. So that's like what we shifted this last year was a very different mindset when it comes to pole vault. And I'm very, very fortunate that I've had some great people join the team to be able to help me get there.
Mhm. Talk to me about the journey of concussion, right? That's something that
Mhm.
really hits home for me. Like
Yeah,
I can't tell how many times I've been hit in the head, and usually I forget a lot of things in the short term, right? I mean, we joke
mm,
about it now, but we got a little
yeah,
bit of a messed up sense of humor. But concussion
yeah,
is a crazy journey, and the
yeah,
healing from it
yeah.
is quite methodical, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think there's severities, right? There's so many different ways, so many different where you hit it. And my knowledge of brain health has completely made a full 360 because, we take our brain for granted. It's just like, oh, it's there, it's help us to have less things, but it also brings us a lot of emotion, brings us depression, brings us anxiety. And it was like, instead of us fighting against these signs and these symptoms, I had to learn to like, wait, why do I have a headache? Where are my headaches? Why do I feel this way? And it was all because of my own actions. And a lot of times I think we're in battle with ourselves because we think like we're not deserving of it, but it's a sign of our body telling us you need to slow down, or you need to rethink, or you need to drink some water, you need to sleep more. And so when that's just normal life, but then when you get a concussion, your brain is literally injured, and having those tissues, those fat cells being injured, it takes so long for them to reproduce. And the one thing that I did not know, but in our everyday life, obviously we breathe in oxygen, and it goes to all our limbs, it goes to our main systems first, our heart, our liver, our organs, everything first, and our brain gets our last bit of oxygen. So when we don't take deep breaths and we don't take a minute to breathe and take in oxygen that's free for everybody, our brain lacks it, and that's where it comes second place to everything else in our body. So when you hurt your, like when you get concussions, or I got a concussion, I wasn't even focusing about getting oxygen to the brain. Like I was just trying to push through workouts, and I was trying to rest. So it was a very mind opening experience because it's like my brain allows me to do what I do, and it gives me the motivation to do what I do every day. But then it was injured. So it was trying to push through it and say it was fine, when still there was a part of me that was not okay. And so until I started listening, it was like that kind of angel and devil a little on your shoulder. It was like when I started listening to the one that was injured, then I started getting better because I started making decisions off of brain health and healing my concussion rather than being an alpha athlete and I'm going to conquer the world and I'm a superhero, and oh, this concussion doesn't affect me. I'm better than it, And so as soon as I decided to let that go, and that took me a year to like say, you know what, I'm tired of listening to you. I'm not better than I was last year. Something's still wrong. Let's try to tap into the little, you could say the one that was being a little, I'm not feeling good, I'm not happy, there's something going on, um and I think that comes with people being more intuitive into their body and into their system, and not giving up, but being more kind to yourself and actually allowing yourself to answer why am I sore, why am I have headaches, why is this affecting, why am I not present. That was a huge thing for me. It felt like I was a ghost, like I was walking through like life but not actually present, like I was seeing it in like a third eye. And I hated it. I hated it that when I was around friends, I never felt present. I hated that when I was at practice, I felt like I was watching myself pole vault. So as soon as I decided to keel, now it's completely different. Like it's insane how present I feel. I feel every step, I feel every movement I make as an athlete, and it feels incredible that I took those. And it ended up being like 13 months that it took me to kind of get back and really commit. I'm now off drinking. It's been 5 months since I haven't drank. And
Uh,
that's kind of something I decided last minute. I was like, you know what? I don't drink a lot, and I've never been a crazy drinker. It was just I loved going out and I loved being around people. And then I would have, probably one too many glasses. And the non-drinking, I didn't believe it until literally week, probably I want to say week 10 or 11, so just over 2 months. Um, it changed. I was like, whoa. Like just like I remember people's names, I remember who they are, I remember their story that they told me that day, I know what day they told me on, like just my knowledge widened without alcohol in my system. So, I mean, I don't think it'll be something I'm never drinking again, but I think for me, if this is the last little push, I'm doing definitely one more Olympics. If this is the last push to give me the best odds to be on the podium, why wouldn't I do that, right? Because alcohol will always be around.
Yeah,
My
exactly.
podium will.
Yeah, 100%. You know, the lifespan of an athlete is relatively short in comparison to your entire life, or you would hope, right? I know, especially in chucking yourself over a pole. Like, you're
Yeah,
not going to be doing
exactly.
that in your 60s. Unfortunately,
I
that's kind
know.
of like, there's always a
Uh,
bigger and younger fish, right? And it's like, yeah, of course. Are you going to take all the opportunities you can while you can? I was like, yeah, like
mhm.
100% you are, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
And I think we need to do a better job of um, allowing athletes to decipher the code
yeah.
that the body sent to them, right? And
Mhm.
allowing them to adopt that mindset rather than just you're a
Yes.
gladiator or you're a superhero, right?
Mhm.
You can take as much beating as you can and you're still going to go out there and be the best of the world. You're like, not
Yeah.
necessarily,
Yeah.
like we're attached to this organic thing and sometimes we
Yeah.
need to, look after it a
Yeah.
little bit more because it
Yeah.
does break or get beat and then we
Exactly.
attach obviously the brain to it and that's a
Yeah.
completely different kettle of fish. We have to look after that a little bit more. And yeah, I think we need to do a better job of
Yeah.
talking at athletes and help nurturing through the
Mhm.
kind of academy level, right, until they get to adulthood,
Mhm.
and then they can make a little bit more of a authoritative decision.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. I think it's something for anything, any sport, doesn't matter. It's like even nutrition, I learned probably not until I turned pro. But why was there nobody around to say, like, in high school, like, eating this or doing this could, like, not like hurt you, but if you want to be that next level. And I call it the 1%. Like, I call it the
Mm.
people that are winning gold every Olympics or bronze or silver. Those people are making, sometimes they're genetically freaks and they just, they're talented and that happens. And you see some of them breaking world records and their lifestyle is like, whoa, like it doesn't make sense and it add up. And I think that that's where even me, I'll admit it for sure. Like seeing some of the top end pole vaulters, especially the male pole vaulters, he has drinks every so often. He does all these things, but think that's the body being like, I can do it too. Then instead of really sitting there and knowing your body personally, um, I probably can't handle alcohol like I used to, right? And for me to be a medalist, I have to make a little bit different sacrifices because my journey was completely different than his or hers, right?
Mm.
So I think that is hard sometimes because it's like, well, why me? But when you really look at it, and the more I've been working with brain health and my neurologist in California, the more he's like, but they're not making sense. They're drinking poison. And when he puts it out like that, like they're drinking poison, it makes me feel like you're right. Like it's not healthy for you. Like it isn't. So you learn to accept it.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I would have the question of like how much of their performance is them
Yeah.
believing their own lie that they are superhuman, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
I always go back to Mike Tyson. You're like, how is he heavyweight champion of the world? You're like,
Yeah.
how? Like
Yes.
this doesn't make any sense. Like you're not training
Mhm.
for fights, you're doing blow, like you're staying up
Yeah.
late. I was like, this doesn't make
Mhm.
any sense. And you're
Yeah.
like, well, how much, like, how far has he gone? Does he
Yeah.
believe that he is Alexander the Great? Does he believe that he is the greatest of all time?
Mhm.
Does he believe that he is this like monster that can't be defeated, right? And then
Yeah.
I quite like entertaining those thought processes of
Mhm.
have someone gone so far left into
Yeah.
this kind of like psychological realm that they end up
Mhm.
changing their performance, or are they just
Yeah.
a freak of nature? Because
Yeah.
it could be that one.
And it could last like, a decade.
Mm,
But what you end up doing to your body later on, I'm sure
mm,
they're not in the bestest of shape. And it could be this fire flight, this adrenaline that they're holding on to for those 10 years. And it's sick that they can work and train and compete and fight at that level. But it's always like, I always see that now, even some of the athletes, and I'm like, well, I wonder what they would be like if they didn't do that.
mm.
Like, would they be even better than they are now, or would they be worse? It'd be interesting. It'd be a cool study for
Yeah, for
someone to
sure.
do.
Well, someone a little bit smarter than you and I, definitely
Yeah, right.
myself.
Hey, I'm
But
smart.
Yeah, I mean that. Not saying
I'm
backtrack,
just
dig
kidding.
myself out of this hole.
I'm
How
just
do I
kidding
get
though.
out? No. Oh, something that I love to talk to athletes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, clearly I like to play sport as a kid. I always like to
Yeah.
move around. I'm one of those crazy people that can't stop. I've
Yeah.
got my chair on my desk at the moment just so I'm stood up.
That's
I'm
right.
a little bit mental, but I like
Yeah.
talking to athletes because I think their relationship with obsession
Mm-hmm.
is quite interesting,
Yeah.
and I usually lean towards agreeing with athletes rather than
Mm-hmm.
disagreeing with them, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm this weird middle ground of coach. So I see a lot of the average Joe, quote unquote, come
Yeah.
in, right? And I see their
Yeah.
mindset and I'm like, actually, guys, I kind of agree with obsession is a good thing,
Yeah.
rather than like, oh no, I can't do this. Like it's like
Yeah.
training 3 times a week, guys, is not
Yeah.
obsessed,
Yeah.
So I would like to understand your
Mhm.
relationship with obsession.
Yeah. So I think my definition of obsession kind of stems to that perfection I was kind of talking about in the beginning. Like I strive for textbook, um, textbook and the best of the best that have ever done it. I remember when I first started pole vault, women's pole vault wasn't really big, so I would watch some of the best males in the world and all the time. And now that the women pole vault is getting bigger and it's huge now, I still watch the men's vault. I love the women pole vault, and obviously I'm doing it, so I love something about it. But I think when I look at the greatest in the world and the person that doesn't take testosterone, take genetics, take all that out of it, who jumps the highest in the world right now, and that obviously is Mondo Duplantis. And so watching his technique and watching the way he jumps, that's where I get obsessed. I get obsessed on like his body proportions to the way his velocity comes in, which loading the pole and where he's being released from the pole. And I truly believe that is where I am obsessed with pole vaults. I think it's a beautiful thing that you can vault very, very high in so many different ways. And my obsession becomes, how am I going to make the Alysha Newman style the highest vault in the world? And that's where our obsession comes. That comes from my coaches, that comes from me. And we go back to like being almost textbook sound, that there isn't much more we can do technically. All we need to add is speed and a little bit more mass and a little bit more velocity and bigger pulls. And if I hit all that and I do all that and my mind's online and it's ready to go, I know I'm going to jump the world record. It's just, that's just what it is. But if one of those things is not lined up, that's where you become obsessed too. You're like, well, why didn't my mind work today, but physically I was on? For me, for training wise though, I've actually had to learn to rest. Like rest is best. Rest allows you to heal. It allows you to put more load on your body. So I'm not obsessed with saying I have to train 6 days a week. I used to be before I turned pro, and I learned that really fast because I was getting really injured. In my university years, I'd have stress fractures, and a lot of signs of that is like obviously poor eating and overtraining. And so once I figured out my nutrition, that got on I guess you could say, figured that out. And then my overtraining was, I think I can do more. I know I can do more. Someone from Australia is doing better than me, or they're doing more workouts than me. I got to do more. And once I decided to drop that mentality, I went, I got so much better. So much better. It was insane. I was able to listen to my body, and that's where my obsession became. I don't have to do what all the other people are doing to be just as great, or if not better than everybody else. And once you, that's why I'm so individualized, and I don't know if I could ever do a team sport for this type of reason. Like team sports, I would just be insane. Like I think I would be so mad at everybody if they didn't show up and didn't perform at their ultimate best. because I know on the runway, if something messes up or something goes wrong, it is me. And I can go home and I can fix it and I can work on it and I can train until I don't get it wrong again. Where if a teammate comes in and they just do something stupid or make a stupid call or get a stupid penalty, I'll be like cursing them out. Like there's no way I could ever do a team sport. Um, and that's my definition of obsession. I obsessed on how I can be at my ultimate best and what I need to do to be at a higher level than everyone else around me. And I'm obsessed that I can tell everybody I haven't drank for 5 months because I know half of the women's field are all like that, you know? So I guess in my head, my obsession may be a little bit different than yours. It's not I have to obsess to train. I have to obsess because I'm obsessed with doing the exact right things to be a little more advanced than everybody in my field, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it kind of bridges that gap between obsession and passion, right? And
Yeah.
I think that's quite beautiful. You know, you
Yeah.
see something, you kind of like lights you up, and you're like, oh, I kind of want to do this a lot,
Mhm.
but then you figure out other ways to be able to achieve it and move things
Yeah.
forward, right? And progress. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. You know,
Yeah.
I remember my gramps telling me something before he ended up passing away a couple of years ago, and he was like, because he was a structural engineer, right? And I was like, well,
Mhm.
I see you working, but you're not working like all the time. You
Yeah.
know, going to his study and he's not working on any of his stuff, right? And he's like, I don't know, writing or drawing or something. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, why aren't you working? He's like, well, if you continuously beat the drum,
Mhm.
the leather will become taut and eventually break. We need to
Mhm.
learn to be better at the playing the drums
Yeah.
without
No.
just smacking that drum. And I'm like, oh, okay, like sounds good. You know,
Yeah.
as a kid, you're probably going to brush
Yeah.
it off and be like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Like you're speaking in metaphors here and you're a little bit crazy.
No. Yeah.
You kind of think back, right? And you're like, oh, okay. So we can't really just do one thing over and over and over and over again, right?
Yeah.
Like if I want to get better at squatting, I'm not just going to go in and squat a million times a week. I'm like, my knees are
No.
probably going to tell me to piss off.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, it's probably
What's
not
so
going to be
fun?
the best thing.
Yeah, like when grandparents say that, my grandparent, Pipe, we're French, so my Pipe used to always say, "I wish, I wish I knew what I know now," and I never really understood it as a kid until I got older, and I'm like, that's him saying he wished he was more present and didn't say, "I know everything in life and I'm not here to learn." Like he never really told us what it meant, but now that I'm older and he's gone, and I'm like, gosh, he was saying to listen,
Mm.
and stop thinking you know everything, and to learn, like every day, learn something new. And um, I think that just like the wisdom that grandparents and people bring to our lives is overshadowed, overlooked. You
Mm.
know, those like funny comedy books
Yeah.
that they used to write and people would read like jokes and stuff. I would love like a wisdom book, like go to like hundreds of grandparents and like get like one or two quotes from them of what they wish they did different or learned through their life and their journey,
Mm.
and sell that, because I think that the wisdom that you get from the wise and from the elders are insane. I'm absolutely, like, I'm a big family person. And so anytime I get to spend time, my mama and Pepe were married for 65 years.
Wow.
And the way she speaks about him still to this day is like, I hope someone looks at me and talks about me like that, like, well, when I pass, you know? So it's really, really cool that there's that deep of love and that deep of commitment and the sacrifices they had to do just within their own life. But when they were raising a family to be successful, right? What they needed to do to help their kids and pave this path that you don't really know what the future is, right?
Mm.
Um, so I think, yeah, I love elders. I'll sit in rooms with elders all day long.
For sure. Like you know, it's kind of like linked to experience, right? And it makes you ask the question of like, is theory even like necessary, or do we need
Yeah,
to just go out and just experience something and then figure it out after the fact, right? Because
make the wrong ones and figure it out as we go.
100%. You know, I say
Yeah.
it all the time. I'm just a walking fuck up. You know,
That's
that's
so good.
that's
I
pretty
love
much
that.
me, man. Like I made pretty much every wrong decision you can make, you know, and I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
still filling out that book of bad moves, guys. Don't do that one. I was like,
Hey, you're
wow.
still breathing and you're still standing, so you're doing something right.
Yeah, exactly. You just gotta figure it out, right, and keep bouncing.
Yeah, I
And
love that. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
we bastardize failure though, don't we? We bastardize trying
Mhm.
and not coming up perfectly correct.
Mhm.
And I think
Yes.
again, I think we need to do a better job of that personally for ourselves, talking to ourselves, and then
Mhm.
also to like kids as well and the younger generation, right? Of just like just try, man. You know,
Yeah.
oh,
Well,
what
and I
about if
used
I fail? It's like, well, whatever.
it's like you gotta just do it because that's where you'll learn. And I laugh all the time because I was that kid that I still have a picture my mom sent me it actually like a month ago. And I was on the I won my high school like championship. I had sunglasses on and there's just tears falling down my face. And I had won. And my mom said, I was like, Mom, why am I crying in this? Like I'm standing on the podium now. Like I'm like, I wish I was on the Olympic podium already. But in that time, I was crying because I didn't break the meet record. So like this mindset as a child that I had was so intense. Like I remember if I didn't win or I got second, like I would punch a wall or I would get so angry at myself that I would like torture myself. And I'm not saying that it was completely wrong. I think it definitely got me to this level of being top 10 or top 5 in the world. But now I feel like if I were this way now, it would hinder me from getting to that 1, 2, or 3 on the Olympic podium because now when I don't do well, I'm more motivated. I learn from something when you're on the top of the podium, you get all these text messages and you get all these people congratulating you and you're reassured that you're on the right path, but you didn't really learn anything that day. You were at your ultimate best that day and it's reassuring and it motivates me and it tells me I'm there. But when I go back to practice, it's, oh my God, you won. Like you were incredible. You were so good. But it's like, no, I won, but like if I were to got second, we wouldn't be having this conversation, right?
Mhm.
This our conversation would have been like, if you only did this, you could have beat the first place girl. Or if you only did that, or we made this different decision. So I think it's okay. I think it's okay to get fourth, to get third, to get second, and really sit in it and enjoy it and love it. Um, I wish like I got fifth at World Championships in 2019 and I ended my season at third in the world rankings. And I wish I sat in that because little did I know the whole world shut down 2.5 years or for 2.5 years later. And that feeling was so incredible. I've never been so hungry. I've never been so excited. I've never been so confident and felt incredible at a fifth place. And I bet you at first place, I wouldn't have felt that hungry and that confident and that excited. You know, I would have been like, oh, I did it. Oh, you know what I mean? And so you underestimate, getting 2 through 5. I know fourth place sucks. I've been a couple of those, and fifth place sucks too. But I'm assuming second does. And I just think people need to not learn, but sit in that feeling and use that as motivation and use that as a sign that you are on the right path of being number one instead of like, oh, I'm not good enough or I'm not going to be at the top. I really think you have to go through those phases to know what it's like to be a champion.
Yeah, I think it's necessary. I really do. Like
Mhm.
you look out throughout history, right, and you see people
Yeah.
who have tried and have not
Mhm.
come up first place, and then you look at their career as a whole, you're like, and then you
Mhm.
go out and dominate, or then you go and make a quote unquote perfect performance or 99%, right? And you're like, yeah,
Yes.
that's because they missed, they failed, they fell short, you know. We need to I think we need to idealize a comeback story rather than, oh, look at this like whiz kid that just comes in and aces his maths test all the time, or she just
Yeah.
gets gold medals all the time. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
that's great, but that's a freak,
Yeah.
man. And
Yeah.
I can't relate
Exactly.
to that.
Yeah. Exactly. They're not very human, is what we call them.
Yeah, yeah. That's that is a legitimate superhero, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll call him
Oh,
when we need the Avengers.
I know. I know. Oh my God. The Avengers.
I
Hopefully
got
one day I can act in that.
that would be unbelievable. You know,
I
that'd
would
be
love that.
awesome.
Yeah, that's my goal after I'm done. Head to Hollywood, do some modeling and acting in the Marvel movies.
Wow.
Yeah.
What got you into that?
I think I just love like that sense of eliteness. I love what the Avengers and what the Marvel scene do. It's not very, it's like fantasies of everybody, you know, they wish they had the superpowers. And so to be able to like portray that into the world, I'll have to be my own Marvel. I'll have to go back to the comic books and see what Marvel they haven't like, or what I guess character they haven't brought forward, and pitch it to them. But I always felt like that superhero feeling is what made me get so good. Like I really embraced me flying in the air was like a superhero. So I think to be able to act it, and I have the body, I have the face, I have the teeth. So then maybe I can just portray a really fun, unique Marvel or something.
I mean, I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
You
You heard it
know,
here from
you'll have to let me know. I'll be
I
there. I'll be
will.
like, I know that lady.
Yeah. I
That
was here, I
annoying,
told you over here.
that annoying guy in the cinema.
Oh, that's so
It's like,
funny.
will you do? Just shut up. And I'm like, I know her.
I know her,
Fuck's
let her
sake.
show up. She said she was gonna do it.
Yeah, she did it. I got
Oh,
um, I got three quick fire questions.
oh, fun.
What
I love.
What is the greatest piece of life advice you've ever received?
Hmm. Okay, I just heard this one. It's called the 2040s and 60s. In the 20s, you think everybody's thinking about you. In the 40s, um, you're worried about everybody else. And in the 60s, you realize nobody ever gives a damn about what you were doing or what everybody else was doing. So I try to use that being now in my 28. I try to think that nobody really cares about me, nobody really thinks about me. And I think it's helped me a lot because when we try to please other people and we do things for other people, you're not really true to your own self. And so that was my advice that I actually learned a week ago from my neurologist.
Wow, I like that a lot. I've not heard that one
Yeah,
before either.
yeah, that's a new one.
Hmm. What's the worst piece of life advice you've ever received?
Oh my gosh. I think the worst piece, somebody, I wouldn't say it was advice, but somebody pretty much said, um, just be, thank God you're good looking because if track doesn't work out, you'll be successful. And I always take negativity stuff like that, and I try to turn it around. I don't think it's a life lesson, but it's a point that people judge beauty off of where they should be and a
Hmm.
category should be. I think a lot of people see me on social. A lot of people view me as this blue-eyed, blonde hair, good-looking female that I get everything I want. And I think just because you have some great accolades and it's not your fault that you have these awesome accolades, that you should be less than or put in a box. So I think when someone says you should be in a certain lifestyle, I think you do opposite than what they say. I think if someone tells you you can't, you go and do it. And I've always been one to use that type of motivation of I don't care that I'm good looking. Where I'm passionate is track and field, and where I want to make my mark in life has been track and field. And I do believe you can be pretty and you can do a lot more than just take photos or be a model or act. Or be a trophy wife, you know.
Yeah.
I think that has always been something that people underestimate in me, and they don't see my knowledge side, they don't see my my drive. I mean, obviously people see my drive and my motivation on social, but they don't see me really um in their whole self. And I'm sure even you talking to me for the last 30 minutes, you've had some different perceptions of me and who I am. And that's completely fine. That's just what social does. So I would say I would never listen to people that are downgrading you or put you in a box, but also if they put you in a box, use that for success revenge is kind of what I say.
Mm, I like that.
Yeah. I never ever want to revenge by hurting somebody. I do it through having a billboard right downtown Toronto, and you know, I'm out there and people can see me every single day so they can remember, oh, I told her that she wasn't going to be great at this, and look at her, she's on billboards, or she's standing on top of a podium with a gold medal. I told her she wouldn't be able to be there. That's like success revenge is the best thing you could do for your sanity and for yourself and for your soul, really.
Mm. What are three words you tell your younger self?
Hmm. Does it have to be words? I feel like I talk a lot. I feel like um, I would say be confident, because everybody right now in life is struggling with that confidence. So be confident, because you're not the only one that feels like you should be somewhere different in life. I would also tell my younger self to like not everything has to happen like today. I usually find myself like I'm like, I have to have this, I have to have this and this. It's like, no, you don't need all of that. It's like steps. So I would say be patient, be confident, and love. Like I think loving somebody or yourself or an animal is the most beautiful thing you can do. And for me, love has really helped my career, having a support system around me that loves me, learning to love who I am, and why I think certain ways, even if it doesn't seem like society thinks it's okay. Um, Learning to be completely in love with yourself and your environment around you has only brought more opportunities, more life, more joy to my everyday life.
Mm.
And I think I always thought I had to keep certain people around to be nice, but that ends up being mean to yourself. Some people come into your life for certain reasons, and embrace that and respect that.